everyone. Good evening, good morning, good lunchtime, whatever time of the day I'm meeting you here. I want to share a wonderful talk from from Eckhart again today. Sorry, I was in the sauna today and I'm really tired. Yeah, and I just found this piece here about these wonderful, strange chain reactions of our human mind that is creating action, reaction, back and forth within yourself, like when you do kind of a self-talk, but more importantly and more occasionally and more intense it can be with other people, of course. And yeah, it is really something that we all have to deal with. Let's say it that way. We all have to deal with conversations, with connecting with people, with exchanging opinions, exchanging information, and there is always this part of opinion, egoic self in there, feeling, listening through the lines, between the lines, understanding things in a certain way that this egoic mind wants to create a story out of, to feel alive, to feel being there for a reason, to explain its use in a way, to underline its use, its importance of being there and creating, imagining. And it's a wonderful tool, imagining, to be able to create a story, an imagination. But if you do it in a bad way, that you only produce these negative stories out there, you will only need negative conversations, experiences with other people. And it's like a huge amount of percentage is what you send out, you get back. You know this saying, I think, this mirror effect. Yeah. Well, so really enjoy this wonderful talk from Eckhart, and after that I will add a few more impulses from different view angles, different side views, let's say it that way. Yeah, just be excited to look at this topic, that strong egoic self, how it wants to demonstrate itself and defend itself and all that. Yeah, get yourself relaxed, prepared with a nice cup of tea, a blanket, and a very cozy place, and then just lean back and enjoy this listening. And don't forget to look up the gift in the end for you, my wonderful subscriber here on my channel. Now listen.
There's a kind of entity, it has turned into a kind of entity, a me, not ultimately real, but seemingly real enough when you confuse who you are with the talking and reacting entity in the head, energized, amplified by emotions in a vicious circle. The emotions are created by whatever the entity is thinking, and the energy of the emotion further amplifies the entity, ego. And the strength of that varies from person to person. In some way, we could say that the entity is an aspect of karma. What is in the East is called karma. It's patterns inside you, inherited patterns inside you, that you confuse with who you are. Consciousness identifies with the patterns. And in some humans, it's a very heavy entity, extremely dramatic or angry or very heavy and sad, easily upset, always looking out for some perceived injury or slight, always ready to jump to its defense, even questioning somebody's viewpoint because you identify with the mind, which is ego. So any viewpoint is invested with a sense of self. The ego is in your viewpoint that you're expressing about this or that. So even somebody questioning your viewpoint can lead to extreme defensive measures or aggression, as you can witness everywhere, on television or in daily life. A peaceful discussion with that entity is not really possible, because a peaceful discussion about something implies that there's some degree of disidentification from that mind-made entity. There is at least a little bit of space in you and the other person. Primarily in you. That's the main thing, is not to demand that there should be space in the other person, but to make sure that there's space in you when you're discussing something. And you can see if the other person is already getting upset. You can see why immediately. Identification with a mental position, ego. The entity feels threatened and is barking back at you. Some dogs do that also. But the same as in humans, even in vicious dogs, they are only vicious because of their past. Underneath the viciousness in every dog, there is a goodness. And underneath the madness of the egoic entity, there is also the truth of who you are or who that other human being is. So your task, as you're confronted with these entities, and you are all the time, occasionally your own still takes over, perhaps. One or two of you may still experience it occasionally. The task is to be there as the observer or witness of your mind. Then you are no longer in the grip of the egoic entity. So ego then is the unobserved mind, complete lack of awareness. In other words, there is only mind. And that's the state of, one could call it, hypnotic state or dreamlike state, in which you dream up your life. And then things happen around you, because in every every person's life you come into this world here, and you're surrounded by a certain situation. Things happen to you, you react. The entity reacts without any awareness. It reacts according to its aggressive, defensive conditioning. So it's completely at the mercy of what happens around it. And it perpetuates its own state. So an event that for somebody who is relatively free of the ego, at least in that particular area of their lives, the same event happening to one person is relatively unimportant. Oh, Eckhart didn't reply to my email. To one person, that is, he must be very busy, or maybe he doesn't even read it, and that's just how it is. And the other person feels deeply offended. I wrote to him 3 times, nothing. Didn't even bother to reply to me. And that's the beginning of the story. And that proliferates into how dreadful a person he is. And then you find other things that you can focus on. And that's how the entity strengthens itself. It grows, it inflates itself by this reactivity. So a relatively insignificant thing is this entity, of course, personalizes everything that happens. It's to do with me. They're trying to do something to me. He's ignoring me. How dare he? And so it grows. The next thing is the emails become angry and accusations or phone calls. I'll get you. That's how it grows. Next time you walk out of your house, I'll be behind you. That's how it can grow. These are more extreme forms, but not uncommon. So it doesn't matter to what extent it grows, but you can see the simple fact of somebody not replying becomes something dreadful that's happening to me and proliferates into a story. It can occupy a large section of your life. And another person said, well, that's how it is. When the Power of Now first came out, some people suggested to me it would be a good idea to send a copy to Deepak Chopra, and I did, because that maybe he'll read it, and it was published in 3,000 copies, the first edition, which had to be taken I carried to bookstores in a plastic bag. And so I signed it to him, and nothing. As if it had disappeared into a hole. And now this is what happens when people send books to me, but now I know why. Because you can't even read them all. You can't possibly read them all, the manuscripts and the books. But luckily, that entity was no longer operating inside me, so there was no complaining that Deepak had not, there was no reply. Well, that's just how it is. He must be busy. Maybe he read it and didn't like it. Maybe he didn't read it. Who knows? The moment I interpret something, I'm projecting. So it's futile to interpret something. You have no clue why. It's just, that's how it is. It's the simple isness of fact. And of course the truth is, sure, he never even saw it, because he gets too many books. It's impossible. By the way, later, when Power of Now was already doing very well, he did write an endorsement, when it wasn't needed anymore, but it was... That was very nice. But if I had sent him angry emails, I still have not heard from you. After 3 months of sending 10 emails, you still neglected to inform me whether, etc., etc., then I don't think he would have written an endorsement. So your reaction determines also what happens next. So if your reaction is an egoic one, it's not simply the reaction to something that has happened in the present moment, it also determines how the events unfold from now on. So if the egoic reaction is aggressive, negative, demanding, complaining, whatever the ego does to strengthen itself, to feel stronger, then that creates an echo in the external world. It's like you're shouting a particular sound, you're shouting it out into the world, and then it echoes back. So what you're putting out then, as in your reaction, which comes through words and actions, then comes back at you. People react to your reaction because they are not perhaps totally enlightened, in which case they wouldn't react to your reactions. But they have their egos, so they react to your reaction, and you create a whole train of reactivity, and this is how the drama develops and grows. And it's all taken for absolutely real, and that's how it is. You don't realize, the entity doesn't realize it's creating the whole story. And all it hears back is the echo of its own conditioning, coming back to you from the external, the outside world. And of course that then serves as a very powerful confirmation that your initial interpretation of events was absolutely correct. So because he says, you see, his original intention was to deceive me, to whatever, and then when I confronted him, he got angry because I was right, and so on, and so on. And if you've ever tried to argue with the egoic entity, with someone, you can see the futility of it. It is impossible. You cannot convince this egoic entity of its own illusory nature. You can't. You only strengthen it. Arguing with the ego is quite funny ultimately, but it's an absurd enterprise. On its own level, it will always win. And it will draw you. Well, the moment you start arguing with the ego, you're already trapped in your own mind patterns. So the karma then, this being an aspect of karma, karma is what happens. Usually people say karma is what happens to you, but more importantly, karma is how you react to what happens, because that is what perpetuates the conditioning. And that creates what you experience as your life, and it creates how other people react to you. So how you experience interactions. Amazing. So often I observe the futility of egoic reaction to nothing, to reacting to nothingness and blowing it up like a huge soap bubble, talking about it for days on end, until finally reality confirms you were right all along. It's quite a trap. So you need to the heavier the egoic entity in you is, the more dense it is, because the density, we could call it that, I'm talking about ego. The emotional aspect of ego is a large part of the emotional aspect of ego is the pain body. The pain body really is the emotional aspect of the egoic entity. And the density of the ego in you varies from person to person. There is probably nobody listening to this here or there. This is the wormhole of the camera through which the words are reaching out, and there's somebody the other end. Hi. Not just somebody, far more people than sitting here. There are thousands of people at the through some. But there's nobody, people sitting here or at the other end of the wormhole, whose ego is extraordinarily dense, or if they are, they won't stay here for very long. Or they will switch off this screen saying, this is awful. There's nothing that the ego likes less than to hear about itself. So it is then not so likely that in you there is this great density of the ego and pain body, but you still encounter in your daily life, you will still encounter many humans who manifest extreme density of ego and pain body. And of course, those people create suffering for themselves and others. That's their purpose in life. That's where they are at in their evolutionary journey. They are here as spiritual teachers. They are creating suffering, which eventually will awaken them when they realize that the suffering they experience is self-created. But that could take a while before they realize that. In the meantime, they might attempt to create suffering for you at the same, it's because they go together. And so they become your teachers, because they force you into more intense presence, or they draw you into the egoic unconsciousness. So when you are confronted with dense egos, as one spiritual teacher in India called them egogies, G being a term of respect, so the egogies, there are still many around, and they're here to teach you more presence. Of course, they don't know that that's what they're doing, but within the totality, that's ultimately what their function is in the evolutionary journey of humanity.
Thank you very much, Eckhart, for this wonderful talk about our egoic self and how it creates kind of a big mess from time to time, let's say it that way. Yes, I can laugh about it now, as I'm not into one of these stories at this moment. But of course I am getting stuck in such moments. They occur in my life still, and it's so wonderful to listen to Eckhart, because he's saying, actually, you're part of it and you're creating it. So, and I really, when you observe all this, what's going on there, really, this action from your side, reaction from the other side, or the other way, the other side acted and you reacted. It's a wonderful exercise to really observe this. And I would start with this at things where the emotions are not that strong. Start there, because it's easier to just, without emotion loading, observe yourself, observe your thinking and your feeling. You can really start with doing that with less emotional thoughts, and then you can increase. Maybe all of a sudden, and you cannot control it, of course. There will, if something then happens sooner or later as well that gets your emotion into a movement, then remember that to observe yourself here and to observe what's going on. And from my experience, I can say that I sometimes even have these times where, when I listen to the person that I'm talking to, and I know that person quite well, I'm already expecting the answer, because I know this person so well, and I'm already annoyed just about knowing what will happen, because it's so boring. Myself gets bored because it will be like that, and there we go, it is here, exactly as I thought. It would be so nice, my brain is telling me then, wouldn't it be nice if this person would just react in a so awakening way that I not always, but often do it myself. Could this other person not possibly please from time to time react that way, that awoken way that I sometimes do. Yeah, but no, it won't happen. There we go. Yeah, because you are still doing the same, and it's really, really crazy, and you get sometimes bored about this, observing and understanding, and then I know I should do this to get what I want, but I am so tired to always do the correct path here, because it's so predictable then. So you like to kind of make that mess or chaos, because it makes you feel alive by being busy with solving all the issues again. Yeah, it's so crazy what our entity, Eckhart is using that word, our entity is producing, creating. I mean, it is so creative, it's unbelievable. If you start doing this observation of your thinking and feeling today, or if you already did, but continue it, and if you only do this, you will change your whole life. Yes. Because like Eckhart just said in the middle, or more at the end, if you are able to change your action or reaction, the other part of conversations can only change with it. It's not possible that their reaction will stay the same. It's just not possible, because it's a moving, alive atmosphere we are all into, and we are so much more powerful than we think with these action and reaction. We can really make a better world with it for ourselves, and I want to encourage you to make that better world, first of all, for your own self, for your own health, wealth, joy. And only if this is full, you have a full glass of energy, and you can pass over some energy to others as well. But without having your own glass full, you will not be able to really impressively or to have an impact on changing, helping others to change. It's only possible with a full glass, completely that full that the water runs over the edge of this glass, and that's how we can serve others too, and give them as well some direction, some support, by being this wonderful full glass, full of joy, full of gratefulness, full of just simply, if to put it together, it's love. It's a love for the being, for the aliveness. And I have to be honest, knowing all this makes me sometimes really like a little gamer. I start to play with this knowledge and with this feeling and with this it is really giving possible to give joy, to laugh about yourself, to really get all the seriousity out of your life more and more. It has nothing to do there anymore. It makes no sense to to have that anymore in your life. Yeah, and now I want you, yes, to remember who you really are, and then start that gratefulness for it. That lottery win in your life is who you are. No one else in your life is your biggest lottery win but you. And for all the others, you're as well a lottery win, but not the maximum one. So, or that's wrong. It's not right. You can play a huge role in somebody's life, yeah, and not just one. So, don't forget that you are that lottery win in your life, giving you all you need from inside of you, from being lovely to yourself, from being like a grown-up mother or dad to your own self. And then I want to remind you, take that chance of your wonderful gift for a free coaching session with me. Yes, go ahead, find me up, look for me, my name Juliana Appel, and JA Coaching. Add that to the name, because it makes it easier to really find me, not another one here. Okay, and then be excited to make an appointment with me, where we make for like 1 to maximum 2 hours. It depends. Can happen, but doesn't have to happen. So where we go into whatever is there today. Don't try to now think of, oh, I have to work on this, I still have to work on that. Please stop this. And just think, okay, it's fun. I look forward to just having this session because it's a wonderful gift. And let's see what it does to me. Let's see what comes today, at that day, when we are meeting each other shortly before. Just make like an opening up ritual, and then just sit there relaxed and awaiting this wonderful experience. So have a wonderful daytime, minute, second, and everything else.